Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Well, we figured it out. Over 8.5 years, over 50 episodes per year, we're approaching 500 episodes. Wow. And yet, we still don't know a lot of stuff. All right. Now, every week, we try to help business owners learn something about business. Sometimes we'll have an expert come in a specific area. It could be Facebook, could be direct mail, could be podcasting, could be finance, who knows, a specific subject like that. Or somebody who has a business and has scaled their business from, hey, I started working on the kitchen table. We had, I had 5 pieces of yarn, and now I'm manufacturing 2 million Levi jeans or whatever. Something along those lines. That's what we try to do every week. But Alex, our radio show is called Ask Brien, AskBrien, and everybody wants to know, why is Brien spelled with an E, since we're not the O'Brien family. So Alex, why is Brien spelled with an E?
Well, I think Brien is spelled with an E, Peter, because you pay homage to the engineer. That's the reason why.
Thank you, Alex.
That's true.
There must be a lot
of
engineers in the audience. Well, there must be a lot of engineers in the audience. And of course, Alex, what is your degree in, Alex?
Engineering,
yeah.
Engineering.
Pretty bad, isn't it? Yeah, I know.
2 engineers and an accountant. We could make a joke about that,
Sounds like
right?
a terrible joke, yeah.
Very bad. Very bad. That doesn't help the other E, which is excellence when you're talking about this show, does it?
You're awfully loose with that word talent also, Peter. Why don't you relax?
Exactly. Another E. Exactly.
Exactly. But I really think it's the enthusiasm you bring to this place that really gets it exciting. See that you double E there?
You just took my word away.
I double E.
It doesn't have the same ring.
You got to remember, I am a double E, electrical engineer. I mean, come on, it's important.
Well, that's why you have no eardrums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that wasn't as loud as you normally do. Come on, you're losing it a little bit there, Peter. What's going on?
Well, I'm just sitting here on my chair.
Too much vacation time, I think. That's what it is.
No, I'm like Archie Bunker in my chair.
Well, why do we do this though? Isn't the biggest E about edumacation?
No, but that was a good one. Because everybody on our show is an expert. Now, Alice, I don't know how do you figure out, because you're the engineer guy. You have logarithms in your background. I'm just an accountant. I just know numbers. So how do you become an expert?
It's above my pay grade. You're going to have to tell me how to become an expert.
Wow. Well,
that's that throwing it back, huh?
Yeah, throwing it back. So we figure that to be an expert, you typically need 5 years experience doing something. If you have 5 years and you're doing something, after 5 years you have a little bit of an understanding about what you're doing. You may not know everything, but you know quite a bit. And so we figure 5 years. Well, you take 5 years. You work 50 weeks a year because, yes, you do get 2 weeks off a year. That's 250 weeks, right? You work 40 hours a week. That's 10,000 hours. So we determined that you need 10,000 hours. However, because many people who are listening to this show are entrepreneurs, another E, we don't work 10,000 hours. I mean, like Alex, what do you work, 10,000 hours in the last 3 months?
Entrepreneur. Oh, I haven't worked 10,000 hours in the last 2 months. Come on. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Alex works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He does take off 5 hours for sleep. So, what are you going to be done in like 9 months?
Easily.
Something along those lines. And yes, you do need to be excellent to be on our show. We've already determined you have to be an expert. We determine a lot of E's, but and it's kind of evolutionary, our show, because we actually are growing, correct? But
well, in an excellent way, yeah.
Having said all that, we do want to really begin with the show because people are saying, hey, it's 15 minutes into the show, and I still don't know what the hell's going on. So, Alex, this week's show is going to be a little bit different than other shows. We have this issue of, first of all, we're going to first decide, we're going to go over old school and new school. So first, Alex, why don't you define what old school and new school is so we can go over the analysis of our show?
Are we talking about old school music? Are we talking about, old school dress? Are we talking about old school marketing? Which one?
Well, kind of like me, it's like you are new school and you read the Wall Street Journal on the digital mag, and I still get my subscription delivered by the newspaper boy, waiting for him to come every morning at 5 a.m. so I can read my paper. They call me old school. They call you new school. Something along those lines.
So we're really talking about digital versus analog in this world, and how we target our people and where we go to generate the things that are most important in our business, which are essentially getting traffic to our store, if we have a store, whether it's online or whether it's a physical store, how we get traffic in there and how we get people to buy things, what we like to call conversion. Is that what we're talking about a little bit, Peter?
Very close. So my real question is, is old school done, or is it only new school, or is new school still there, but you have to keep on some of the same parameters that you learned from the old school, or is it a hybrid? What do you think?
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. Okay, so let's go with, if you're in a marketing world and you want to always use the number one strategy, which is frequency breeds familiarity. So in other words, the more that you talk to someone, the more they feel better about you, the more likely they are to buy from you. And that hasn't changed whether it's medieval times to today. I mean, you greeted your people when you had your little shop outside the castle, and you sold them a chicken that they could have for dinner. Or it's today when you're online and you see an ad from a little fruit company called Apple. You know that name. You know pretty much that if you buy something from them, it's going to work, or at least in theory, it's going to work, like an iPhone. So you're familiar with it. So that's the number one thing that goes through all the generations. But in all honesty, the multi-channel marketing approach is still the best one. It's just the channels have changed. And you look at this, you go ahead.
So multi-channel, that means NBC, HBO, and Netflix? Is that multi-channel?
Well, that might have been true in the past. I mean, yeah, when you look at the past, a lot of our marketing to people were, word of mouth, because we always talk to people. That was it. It was direct mail, and it was usually local or national TV. Now, there's also the ancillary pieces that people did. Well, yeah. Well, I was going to mention that one too. That fell into my category of something that hasn't changed. Now we're talking about past and present. You asked about crossover, right? So radio is one of those crossovers. So before we go there, let's talk about. We can go to crossovers, radios and associations. So associations are, if you are a member of a certain association, you market through those people that you're a member of. In the old days, that might have been an actual club where you went to. Today, it might be a forum on a website, or a social media forum on something called the Facebook or somewhere like that. So you might actually have that. So that's some of the old school. And then one of the most classic old school approaches is talking to people. Yeah, whether you're going to go to seminars or you're going to attend seminars, do local events. Those things are, again, another crossover.
So you mentioned associations. Is that different than affiliate marketing?
Yeah, it's a lot different. It's a lot different than that. Associations are things that affiliate marketing obviously isn't new school, or what we call present. But associations are clubs or things that you may join or be associated with that will allow you to talk to other people. There's a number of them that you can always think of. I mean, I always think it depending on your demographic, right? People now say whether there's a lot of different demographic studies, 18 to 24, 18 to 40, 40 to 55, and now there's this senior that people are going after. I'd probably go to the VFW lodge if I was going for seniors, right? Where are you going to go? These places where people
AARP?
frequent. Well, there you go. That could be an association. I'm not sure they're going to allow you to market very cost effectively there, but you're right. That's another association where people join and they are involved in it, and you can use that to your best advantage. And that hasn't changed. Association marketing hasn't changed. Affiliate marketing is a different thing we'll talk about when we talk about what the future is or where present marketing is, which is, really exciting. I mean, realistically, your keys are driving traffic, driving conversion, sales, and that's all based on something called funnel logic. Not a funnel cake. I know, Peter. I know you're thinking of a funnel cake, but
no, I'm thinking about donuts. Donuts, just like Homer Simpson.
Good.
Homer Simpson does that all the time. But what about the new one, which is not old school, not even new school, but future school, AI marketing?
That's a takeoff of old and new school. So let's talk about new school a little bit, and then we'll talk about AI and how it comes in. So when you talk about what we're doing presently, we're probably not using magazines. We probably can't afford and don't want national or local TV. What we do want, where our crossovers are, is we do want radio. Local radio is always the best. People do listen to radio in their car. We do also want direct mail. I have. It's the station.
98.1 FM. That's a local station.
It is fantastic too, and people listen to it, and they usually get advice from good radio programs. But some of the other areas are things that we look at all the time, and I usually put them in this order, and we can drive through them. But it's SEO, which we can talk about what that is, content marketing, social media marketing, email marketing, which also goes along with direct mail, paid search, and paid digital ads. Those are usually where we target. But targeting has changed to people's online behavior. That's really where people are looking at today. You used to look at what was your behavior. If you were Peter, you picked up the newspaper and you read it on the way to work. Maybe you got hit in traffic, but you read it on the way to work. And, you turned on the TV when you got home and watched your, local news. That behavior is not the same behavior as we have in online behavior today, right? Or is it the same for you?
Well, my first question is old school over?
No, old school. Well, yes and no. I would say that 100%. The things that drove old school drive our marketing today. The key of being able to get traffic, being able to get conversion, and building a funnel is still the same. It's just the methodologies which you use are evolved, like this show with the E. It's an evolution. So let's take direct mail. Direct mail in the past was send a letter out to a lot of people without a lot of call to action. And because they recognize the name or they feel like you are going to be very truthful to them, they usually take that as this person spent the time and the effort to get me a physical piece of mail, I'm going to read it. Today's world, people still look at it as a novelty. Oh my gosh, I got something in the mail. Maybe I should read it. I never get anything in the mail. Usually comes in email. So it's a totally different approach. And when you get it, the trust isn't instantly there. You have to build that trust with them. So you have to be a lot faster at getting to the point. So I'll take this as where we come off of where movies and TV are today, is that in the old days we could drag things out. A movie would take a long time to get to the point. A TV show, you'd be 25 minutes in before you really get to the information. Today they want to hit you up front. It's what we call in the government. It's basically bottom line up front. your bluff. And that's exactly where marketing is today. You basically give them the answer before you ask them the question. And that's really a new school approach that has to make old school work. So if you're looking at something like direct mail, it won't work the way it did 20 years ago. It'll only work the way it does today, which is directly to the point. And some people during the pandemic and other times thought that there was a different way of doing direct mail, right? Peter, do you know about that? What was that approach?
I have no clue.
Well, the insult approach, right? Making people feel they were stupid to get their actions. That lasted a couple of years. But of course, people change and they really don't want to be insulted. So we've gone back to a direct mail approach where we give them the answer up front, and then we tell them what the question is. And that is very true, primarily because as people are working on social media and they're looking at online, you have 5 seconds to grab someone's attention. So if you think of anything where you advertise today, if you're looking at Instagram or TikTok, a lot of these things are 5 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. YouTube advertising, you got to catch them in the first 5 seconds. Unless you have a known brand, it's a well-known brand, and maybe you get 20 seconds to tell them that. But that's the reason that you have to have effective marketing to do this, and that's where you have to get them right up front. And that's really what's changed the vehicles we use, whether it's email marketing, paid search, digital, social media, SEO. Those vehicles have changed. But more importantly, the old school methodology can still work if it's updated to target online behavior rather than, standard what we'd call human behavior.
Well, there's a lot of things. First of all, TV advertising has been around for over 60, 70 years. And that has always been the 15-second commercial to maybe a minute commercial on a long, long, long commercial. But that's pretty much it. That's the time frame. With YouTube, yes, you can have a 5-second commercial, but you can also have a 10-minute or 20-minute or 100-minute video. So the time frames can be different, right? And in terms of insults, I grew up in the 1980s, and I was in New York City, and all I heard was Crazy Eddie, who would have Christmas in July, where he would be selling TV sets on sale during July to try to drum up business, not wait until December. So, that was kind of crazy, wasn't it?
Well, his prices were insane, which was his marketing campaign, but he wasn't insulting you. He didn't tell you you were stupid if you didn't buy it. He was just telling you you're insane because his prices were crazy. But again, his approach was one of the starts of what, we'll call this new school, which was get it out really quick. He'd yell at you and say, my prices are insane, get in here quickly because this isn't going to last. He had a call to action that was there. And again, you're right about you can have a 15-minute YouTube or a 30-minute instructional YouTube. And for the most part, there's certain sweet spots with all of that. That is the reason you mentioned affiliate marketing. So usually companies will not do that direct marketing themselves to do 15 or 20-minute or half an hour. What they will do is they will blend their marketing into other content that people want to hear, and they'll usually have affiliates deliver that content. So, for instance, you may have an affiliate use a certain product, but use that product to talk about it. I think one of my favorites today is a certain channel where what they do is they talk about how to I don't want to mention it too hard. They talk about how to do certain things on the computer using certain pieces of software and how this result happens. And it's really a half an hour long ad for that software because they're basically telling you what to do. And they're saying, by the way, here's the software we use, and it makes it really easy. And it's very, very subliminal to an extent, but it's highly effective. And I find myself constantly drawn to it as well. So, it's that usability.
We got to take a quick break. So everyone listen to KHCS 1220, 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Hold that thought because Alex is going to tell you. I'm sure everybody's waiting in anticipation. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show, KHCS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Now, we had that long, long gap, and Alex was talking about some company with something online, some big software company, probably no one's ever heard of anyway. Alex, you going to tell people, or you just going to keep them waiting?
Well, no, we're going to keep them waiting. You know how we do this. It's a good thing. No, let's talk a little bit about, you got me thinking about old school a little bit. And one thing I don't miss, and, you may miss it or not, think of old school. You were saying, hey, on YouTube, you can still do 5 seconds or 10 minutes. What was the number one catch phrase that everybody used in old school? And it's basically 3 words. The first one starts with an N, the second starts with an A, and the third starts with an I.
Wow.
New and improved, right?
Well, yes, that was very big. Remember, I had
it was very big.
Well, you ever hear Coca-Cola when they had that new and improved edition?
New Coke? That was great.
That was very successful. Well. One of the most successful programs ever, because once they said it, everybody wanted to go back to old Coke.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was, they might have screwed that one up a little bit, just a touch. But
it actually made us an outstanding return.
Man, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, they did good afterward. Cost them a few dollars, but hey, marketing approaches don't always hit, right? I mean, we had the approach with Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light. How did that one hit for a while? We had a few of those that came in. Now there's a new one with Miss Sydney Sweeney. That's interesting too. So there were people who always think outside the box when it comes to marketing and try new things. And that's exciting. But when you think about it, though, the best place, and I hate to almost say this because it's 100% true, is the best place to look when you're looking for a new school marketing approach is look at where Google is. And the reason there is, well, the biggest question is, why is Google free, Peter? Why don't we pay for that incredible service?
Because the whole goal is, first of all, we may not be paying for that free service, but there are plenty of people that are paying lots of money for that service, right? People pay for ads. Right. And by the way, I don't want to diverge too far, but I did want to throw that back at you. When you talk about new and improved, what are we on, iPhone number 27 or whatever? Every phone is improved. So it's still being worked.
They don't particularly use that term. They announce a bunch of things that aren't
new and improved.
Exciting to us.
Oh, I added on a 4.9 to a 4.8 megapixel picture, so therefore you got to go out and spend another $1,900 for your new iPhone. Okay, yeah.
Well, the paint gets dull. What can I tell you? I mean, it's easy to trade your car in. The paint got dull, right? Yeah. Exactly. Don't even go there. I can't talk about my old company like that. They're good people. No, but we look at Google, and the reason it's free is because right today, people are paying for it with marketing dollars, right? They're advertising there. But why are they advertising there? Well, because Google did something really smart. They gave away the search engine so they could map the human mind. They could map human performance and human behavior, and Google has it down to, literally a science. They know what you're going to do next. They know how many times you're going to do it and where you're going to do it and how you're going to do it, and they can give incredible statistics to advertisers and incredible return on investment. That's an old term we used to use in marketing, ROI, return on investment. Remember that one? But we don't talk about that anymore. We talk about clicks and eyeballs and fun stuff like that.
Well, it's not old school, but let's go back to that theory, okay? Google came out in 2003. In 1995, you had Yahoo, and they had banner ads. Why did Yahoo lose their market share to Google?
Well, look, there's always they're also let's look at another one there. What was before Facebook? MySpace, right? So the pioneers get the arrows and the settlers get the land. Often what happens is that you have to break a little ice. Sometimes you'll find a technology or a market approach where people just can stay with it and win with it. But most of the time, you're breaking new ground and you're learning, and you're breaking more eggs than you are making omelets. And Google had a better approach to it. Maybe we'll say I don't want to say that Yahoo's a bad company, Google had a better approach, and they won. But it's not always the case. But they employed technologies. I mean, with DARPA aside and all these other things that were involved with them, they employed incredible technology. They went to the government. They got a lot of funding, for projects. They helped the government, map the mind of our individuals in the country, and it took off. And it just so happens that they today still do an incredible job of being able to map the human mind and map human behavior. And you really can't go wrong looking at what they do and emulating it, which is pretty telling for where we're going. Because look at what they're doing from a standpoint of what you mentioned, AI.
Well, and by the way, there's tons and tons of products out there where there are two, right? You have Pepsi and Coke, right? Pepsi and Coke, there's not that much difference. You have, Microsoft wasn't the first one out there. There was that company called Apple. You ever heard of them?
No, never heard of them. No. No, and you're right. There's leaders and there's followers, and there's always someone strong that's out there to do it. But again, the companies that have the money, it just goes to show the more successful you are, the more money you can put into your success, right? I mean, companies that are successful, even in small companies, people say to me all the time, well, I'm just getting started. I can't afford to advertise to get my small company going. I said, you can't afford not to advertise to get your small company going because you have to feed that growth, and that growth will help you. So you have to invest money to make money. The old saying is still 100% true. Whether it's a retail business where you need more inventory, or whether it's an online business where you need a better approach. I was just reading the other day from one of my marketing sources where they were talking about doing A/B testing. Do you know what that is, Peter? A/B testing?
Well, yeah. I got an A in accounting and a B in business. A/B.
Very good. Now I know you're a fan of A/B testing. That's why I said that. But they did A/B testing or ABC testing in some cases, where they came back and put up different the same product the same website with the same product in different locations, and plotted the behaviors of people in how they use filters and how it drives traffic, and they did it in a very succinct manner. We've all tried that, but they did it in a very succinct manner with over 1,000 products. And what they found was that just having one less filter, one less depth into your product categories, where we always thought it was more confusing, right? We want to drive people to the right area. They found that could almost increase conversion 80%. So little things we're learning every single day. I was blown away by that. And I went back and redesigned some of my own particular websites just to take advantage of that. We'll see how well it does. But it's pretty incredible.
We got to take a quick break, Alex. We're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 98.1 FM. And we do have our sponsor, Legal Steps, and they very, very much want to have the frequency that you've discussed.
And we want to say thank you to Legal Steps and allow them our frequency. It's spelled LEGALSTEPZ. That's with a Z.com. And once you log on to Legal Steps, you are afforded the opportunity to take courses if you're trying to start your own business. And this is really kind of like a 101 for you. This is ground zero, ground entrance. They make it really simple. So don't get confused. Don't get frustrated. Don't get ahead of yourself. Log on to legalsteps.com. You pay the $150 for the course, and you're good to go. The one thing that I love about it is that you can work at your own pace. So I picked one of the courses. There are 3 to choose from: register a trademark, form an LLC, or form an S corporation. And once you decide which one fits your needs, you log on to your course, and then you can work at your own pace. You're not worried about somebody else's schedule because you have another job, maybe a second job. You have a family, you have a dog, you have errands that you have to run. You don't have time to work on someone else's schedule. So pick what works best for you, pause it, go back to it. You can rewind it if you didn't fully catch something. I loved it because I was able to take notes, and that's how I learn best, is writing things down so I can kind of check my work. As you're working, you're able to check your work on the screen. You can see your legal expert on your screen, and they are showing you exactly the question and how to answer it. So you know that you're not going to answer it the wrong way and get to the end of the course and you've done half of it incorrectly. That's not the case with LegalSteps.com. Those experts that I just mentioned have over 30 years experience. I think we're closer to 35 years. And if you get to the point where you're confused, you're frustrated, you're just totally lost, they'll just do it for you. So really, you've got nothing to lose. Go on to LegalSteps.com and see what really works for you, what will get you ahead. That business that you've been thinking about for so long, now is the time. Go to LegalSteps.com, LegalStepz.com.
Well, thank you, Jen.
You're
Thank
welcome.
the Legal Steps.
You got it.
You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show, KHS 1220 and 90. Before we got to our sponsor, you were discussing. Do you recall? Alex?
Yes,
Hello?
I'm there. And let me mention that Legal Steps is a great example of a company that has a great product, and they advertise with a lot of frequency. So eventually, people are going to start their own business, and when they do, they're going to think Legal Steps, because why not? It's a great product, it's a great company, and Legal Steps is someone that I trust, because I hear this very nice young woman talk about Legal Steps all the time, and I got to try it. See how marketing works? It's incredible, isn't it?
It is incredible. Actually, I think Legal Steps is both old school and new school, because you're doing something that's very old, but it's a new way to do it.
I would agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're talking a little bit about new ways of doing it and ways of getting there. Let's transition slightly, because it makes sense, to talk about how to build a funnel in today's world in the new school compared to the way you did it in the old school. Sound good?
That's fine. I mean, I have my funnel right over, I take the beer right out of the keg, and the keg has to go through the funnel into my glasses so I can have 5 or 6 12-ounce glasses after the show.
I've seen you, though. I've seen you with that funnel right in your mouth from the keg, so don't give me that. I know what those law school parties were like. Yeah, I get that. But really,
But in law school, you have to pass the bar. So we weren't drinking if you passed the bar.
Ooh, that's why you didn't pass the bar too often? Is that what happened? Okay. No more law school jokes. Okay. Now, the first thing in any funnel is the same as it always was. It's market research. Just that today, even a small company can do an incredible amount of market research very inexpensively. And there's a lot of tools that can help you do that, pieces of software that will do that. One that I got really excited about recently is something called SimilarWeb. People can look that one up. It lets you look at your competitors' websites and how effective they are and how ineffective they may be, and really get an idea of what's going on out there. If you're looking at web activity, or you're looking at a store that's an online store, an e-commerce venue. Really, really exciting. But market research is the number one thing you do. In the old days, you might have done that market research by asking a bunch of people. You might have done it. Let's say it was a direct mail piece. You might have sent out 10 of one type, ABC testing, 10 of another, 10 of a third letter, and put them out there and saw which one you got a response on. That still works today, by the way. Market research was really important. Usually, you look at your competitors, you see how well they're doing. And again, that was part of the market research: a Google versus a Yahoo, a MySpace versus a Facebook. What do we like about MySpace? We like these 3 things. What do we hate about it? These other 3 things. How do we fix them? We make 6 great things, right? So market research is always the key. I think what's changed a lot. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say what I think's changed a lot is budget. It's incredible how inexpensively you can touch a lot more people than you could in the past. Now, there's a lot of questions whether you're touching the right people, so to speak, and I don't mean in an Epstein fashion, but touching the right people is getting out there. I had to throw one in because I know how you love that subject.
Yeah.
It really getting in there and getting in front of the right people, man, just because you get a bunch of eyeballs on your information doesn't mean there's going to be a conversion. But you can do it a lot more inexpensively today than you could years ago. Think of how much it costs to do newspaper advertising, how much it costs to do television advertising. Radio is about the same, still inexpensive to do that, probably one of the best ways of getting out there. But if you're thinking about, email versus direct mail, I mean, there's no comparison, even though direct mail may still be a good way to go. Content strategies today, developing content versus having content done before. Magazine advertising. I remember in one of my companies, $100,000 a month going across 17 different magazines and not getting results that I could look at until the end of the year to go through. So I had essentially 12 months of blindness on my funnel and my market research to make adjustments to my funnel. So today, with a small budget, you can do a lot, but you still have to be careful where you budget your money. Would you agree with that?
I do. We do have to take a quick break, but I want to discuss it a little further after our break. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show, KHS 1220, 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Like no other station in the world. All right, Alex, so we had a question. And that is, you said nowadays companies can do market research for less money than in the old days. So explain that.
Well, you young whippersnappers can do that. It's always the same. Now it is you can do it. You can do it a lot less expensive if you know what you're doing. So if you put a plan together like you always had, you have to look at your considerations and targeting. So the demographics and the basics, right? You're going to say, what region do I want to sell into? What age groups do I want to sell to? What sexes do I want to sell to? What's the financial status of my buyers? And what affiliations do they have so that I can approach those as well? And once you know that, the beauty of it is you have this thing called the interwebs. And in there, you can ask those questions. So believe it or not, you can actually use AI to help you. You don't believe it? You can actually ask ChatGPT a certain number of questions for free, and you can actually use AI to help you do market research today.
So
you just have to plan it out and do it correctly.
Ask AI how I can sell a bunch of horses to the Amish.
Well, you can do that. That would actually work, and you might get a decent answer. Not many, but you might get one. You can ask more about Amish horse racing is always exciting. They're not on the internet. That's a good one. But you can ask questions. What is the number one selling product in this category? What is the number one selling service in this category in this region? And you'll actually get fairly good results. I mean, like anything else, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But if you get it from enough places, you'll get it. It'll give you a place to start. The problem with market research has always been for people who don't do it professionally is they don't know where to start. Where do I start? They don't start with a plan of, laying out those basics, getting those demographics understood, knowing their customer. I used to have a big sign up in my one of my sales rooms, one of the companies that I found it, and it said in big letters, like 3-foot tall letters, it said, "Know thy customer." And that was it. That was the theme that we lived by in sales. You had to know the customer before you started pitching them. You had to know who they were and where they were. And we wouldn't always be able to hand them perfect leads. We didn't always have the Glengarry leads. So they weren't. That was one that most people will go over their head. But they didn't have the perfect leads. We always had to develop those leads. So we had to know the customer. So in the same case with market research here, when you're doing advertising, whether it's online or not online, and you're doing marketing, you can use a lot of the tools that are there that are free. You can use Google to ask about marketing in those areas. They'll show you a bunch of demographics and information. You can do the same thing with Facebook. For free, they're going to give you a lot of information. You can use incredible tools like SimilarWeb, which there are free trials on. If you choose to take advantage of it, you can use other marketing tools to get this. A lot of the funnel tools today will charge you, but there are a number of these online tools that you can use to get a really good idea whether it's even a go or no-go in your business. Like, you might want to start courses on, underwater basket weaving. You might think it's the greatest idea in the world, but after doing a little bit of research,
Alex,
you'll realize maybe that Peter's the only one doing that. And, that's it. But it's possible. You might want to sell a sign that sits on the dash of people's cars that says, "Remember to turn the headlights off." You might think that's a great idea, but most cars today have automatic headlights, so that wouldn't sell very well. So there's a lot of ideas that you'll get in market research. My favorite one that I always run into, and I'll just mention this real quickly, is that people say to me, "I have a great idea. I've searched everywhere, and no one else is doing it." That's the biggest red flag in the world. That's the biggest red flag in the world, right? If no one else is doing it, why?
Wait, I thought the biggest red flag in the world was China.
We don't need to go there. We don't need to go. Well, we might end up going there, but not on purpose. Yeah. I've been there. So those are the things you really have to look at. You can do market research very inexpensively, very quickly as well, which is one thing you couldn't do in the past. In the old days, we used to have punch cards and things we used to send out. A lot of our market research was done through direct mail. And sometimes, you send a letter out, you give someone $1 and say, fill out this survey, and I'm giving you $1 to do it. And we give out a lot of dollars and get back very few surveys, and they'd be 3 months after we launched the product. So those things don't work. And I know you do that, Peter, right? You're giving away money all the time for your market research.
Well, always. Every website developer in the world has been living in mansions because of me. Anyway, unfortunately, we've come to the end. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show, KHS 1220, 98.1 FM. Until next week, over and out. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you, Jen. See you next week.